Hello. I'll wait a minute to see if anyone joins while I'm live. This won't be super long unless people have questions, but I just wanted to say a few things about fitness trackers. So I've been asked questions over the years, and I've actually used them for a really long time. I think I got my first Polar USA heart rate monitor in 1996. I should have brought it out before I started the video. It doesn't look really that too much different. It has the strap that goes around the chest. But I'm kind of like a gadget junkie. Like if money were no object, I would buy a ton of them. I just think they're fun. But I know a lot of people use them for different reasons. And I hear people using them for some reasons that might not be beneficial, and I want to just point out some things that might help you make the most of it, or maybe break bad habits, which I'll talk about. So just to give like a brief overall place to start, I think there are a lot of good options out there, right? You've got the Polar USA brand, which I really love. I've been using theirs forever. Fitbit is super awesome. They have lots of models for different purposes. Garmin is another one. It's really popular with runners. And there's the Apple Watch that has different features. So just to start pointing out a few things, the Apple Watch is great, but think of it this way. If you want precise data, I don't know that I would rely on the Apple Watch because they are not a fitness company. And granted, you can connect other fitness apps, and that's pretty fun too. So if you like that, if you find that fun, that might be a good reason for you to use an Apple Watch. Like I mentioned, the Garmin brand is popular with runners because they have a lot of things specified for the way that runners train. So that's why a lot of runners like them over other brands. Say like Polar USA, they have different models that are more for runners or for biking. And so any fitness tracker, they've got, there's formulas, right, to make up the different calculations that it does for you. And some of them put more time and money into doing that research than not. And I've actually been lucky enough to take a few classes by a man named Len Kravitz, not the singer, but a different Len Kravitz, who has built his career on helping to develop the formulations for like when you get on a treadmill and you type in like your weight and how long you're going to go for, and it tells you how many calories you burned. He's helped create a lot of those formulas, and it's really whichever route you go. And anyway, so that guy, he's also shifted into the realm of fitness trackers as well. And so he really knows what he's doing. It's been interesting to sit in on some of his classes and learn from him and what goes into all of that. And what was I going to say? Oh, let me back up. This is something that I recently learned, and I thought it was really cool, so I'm going to share it with you. You've probably heard, or maybe you haven't, but it's kind of a common thing that getting in 10,000 steps a day is the norm, or what everybody, like grown adults, should aim for every day. And I think that's it's a nice round number, and I've bought into that. I'm sure if you dig back in my past social media, you could find posts that I said, if you're not getting 10,000 steps a day, should you consider yourself sedentary? And as of today, I don't think you should consider yourself sedentary if you're not getting 10,000 steps a day. And I'm going to explain why. But a cool thing, hi Troy, thanks for hopping on live. Let me know if you have any questions. The cool thing that I learned that I wanted to share with you guys is that 10,000 steps a day came basically from nowhere. I forget where I recently learned this. I wrote it down. I meant to look it up before I came on live. But it was a Japanese company in the 1950s that developed one of the first pedometers, and they, in their marketing, wanted to come up with a number with how many steps people should get in order to be healthy, and they came up with this number, 10,000. Now, if you think of where technology is today, it's pretty awesome, right? The science has come a long way since the 1950s. But if you put yourself back in the 1950s, things were being developed. we can give those scientists credit, but we know like it doesn't even compare to what we know today, right? So that 10,000 steps a day was developed in the 1950s, and we've just kind of hung on to it because people haven't really questioned where it came from. So if you ever feel guilty that you don't get 10,000 steps a day, yeah, like I said, I think it's a good round number. There's nothing terrible about it. It can be a really big stretch for some people. So that might help some people if you ever feel guilty that maybe you don't get the 10,000 steps a day. Just know that there really is no science behind it. So there's that little tidbit. And then there's also another thing to think about. I see a lot of people really focusing on using a fitness tracker, whether it's Fitbit or Garmin or Apple Watch or Polar, focusing on the calories. And this is my opinion. Other people will feel differently. Other fitness professionals might tell you differently. I think that focusing on the calories is probably, you shouldn't focus on it because they're numbers, they're formulations, they're never really going to be accurate. And also, the less time you take to really personalize all of the options that you possibly can with whatever device you're using, the less accurate it's going to be. So let's say you get a Fitbit, you're excited, you're like, boom, bam, I'm going to use this. Let's burn some calories, take some steps. I can't wait to see how many calories I burn. And you start it up and you put in like, oh, there's my height and weight. Yep, I'm female, male, whatever. And you're off. And that really is not, like, those are the basic things to start the formulations, but there's so much more that can go into it. Your height, your weight, your age. And really, here's the biggest point that I want to make is if you're using a fitness tracker, don't so much focus on like what the numbers are, like, boom, I hit my 10,000 steps, my fitness is 100% on track. No, that's not a good mindset to have. What you want to do is just use it for comparison of your previous activity. So, like for me, I like using the Fitbit because of I forget what it's called, for how many flights of steps. I just think that's fun information. And some days when I'm feeling really pumped, I'll just run up and down my flights of steps in my house a few times just so I can get more than before. And I think that's fun. But going back to what I was saying about calories, you don't want to focus on the calories because, like I said, there's so many factors that can go into caloric expenditure, how many calories you burn, that I think out of all of the things that a fitness tracker can track, calorie burning is probably the least accurate of the features it can track. So don't hold on to that so tightly, like, okay, I ate 4 slices of pizza, that's this many calories, my device says I burned that many calories. I don't encourage that kind of behavior. I don't think that's a very mentally healthy route because it's not super sustainable, and it can get you like really messed up in your head of like mentally beating yourself up if you're like so focused on caloric numbers. So another thing that I've pointed out to people when they've asked me about which fitness tracker to get, something that you want to think about, and another reason why they're not that accurate, especially with calories, is let's say you sit at a desk job all day and then you go to the gym, and when you get to the gym, you're doing, let me grab a dumbbell. You're gonna do, say, overhead presses. So let's say you're sitting. So you're sitting, say you do 3 sets of 20 overhead presses. That's a lot, right? And then after you're done with your overhead presses, let's say you do a tricep extension and you're still sitting. You're doing, let's say you're really cranking it out, 3 sets of 20. And then when you're done with those, you're still sitting on the bench and you start doing bicep curls, 3 sets of 20. 20 is a lot. I mean, whatever is right for you, but I'm using this as an example. So, and then you can still stay sitting and do lateral raises. You could do front raises. So you could do all of that sitting. I did not take a single step. but you bet I burned some calories, right? So let me put these down. So does that make sense? How you could be sitting there, like that's quite a bit of work, right? Overhead presses, tricep extension, bicep curls, lateral raises, front raises. You could keep going and doing all this upper body stuff that's like really burning some calories, but you didn't take a single step. So what is your fitness tracker going to say? It's going to say 0 steps because you sat all day at work. So, obviously you took a few steps to get to the car, get to the gym. But anyway, you get my point. So that's one thing to think about, why you don't want to just like hold on super tight to that data, because it's not going to grasp everything that a human truly does. So like I said, I love them. I think they're fun, but you should be able to go without them. Believe me, I know the feeling of like, you leave the house and you don't have your fitness tracker on and you might feel a little bit lost because you're used to it. It's just kind of fun to check it. But if you are that way, I challenge myself to leave them at home because I don't want to be that dependent on it. So even me as a gadget junkie, every once in a while, if I'm about to leave the house and I sit there, I'll just think to myself like, you know what, today's the day I can do without this. Let's make sure I'm not so hooked on having this dang gadget that I can, function normally without it. So that's another thing to think about. But the biggest thing, like I just gave the example with, if you were to do a bunch of stuff sitting, I hope that is a good example to have you really get a big picture of why they're not always going to be accurate. So basically, to sum it all up, gadget junkie myself, I love them. They're super fun. I especially love the flights of stairs, and they're just, use them to compare your activity level compared to your previous activity level, rather than being fixated on certain numbers, especially the calories. So let me see. Hi, Bill. I have a question. I haven't listened to this, but I will. Just bought the new Apple Watch Series 4, so I'd be interested in your thoughts. Oh, good. So I mentioned the Apple Watch earlier, so definitely, or hopefully you'll go back and watch it. I think they're really cool, especially because they can connect to so many other fitness apps. And so here's the thing. Like I said, like I was saying a little bit ago, if you just get a gadget and start and don't input all of the options, you're going to get a less accurate reading if you don't fill out all of the personal options it gives you. So the same thing with the Apple Watch. You're going to get more accurate data if you connect it to more apps with more options. So hopefully that makes sense. Like I know even just on an Apple phone, there's the health app that you can connect to, the Fitbit app, and other fitness apps. There's, I think, probably endless. I think when people who make other apps, they just have the option to make it connect to the Apple products or not. So really, the more you connect to it, the more data you're going to get, and the more personal things that you can tell it, the more accurate the calculations will be. What was I going to say? Oh, I think a cool thing about, and this is where, I don't know, I'm not up to date with all of the most, with like Garmin's latest features and Polar USA's latest features or Apple Watch latest features. But, so this is just kind of like a generalization. What's cool about, because I know on just the Apple phone with the health app, you can even track your heart rate. And again, it's going to be more accurate if you get it more personal data. But I'm sure that it just converts over to see that same kind of stuff on the Apple Watch. And I didn't even talk about the heart rate feature. So like the reason I love Polar is because it does like VO2 tests which is like how much oxygen you're using. And so let's talk about heart rate really quick. So I'm not sure if Fitbit tracks heart rate. It probably does. The Fitbit I have, I actually See, this is how much of a junkie I am. You guys want to know a secret? I wear the Polar heart rate watch, and I wear the Fitbit clip-on at the same time, just because I like to compare. And it's interesting because I have even measured my footsteps. So like, I know a Fitbit, and this is where, you know, the different features you want to like weigh your options. So just your steps throughout the day. You know, if you think about it, everybody has different size steps, right? So Fitbit, they have a test when you set up your device to figure out how long your stride is. And I know a lot of people have a Fitbit and they have not taken the time to do that, to calculate how long their actual stride is. So if you don't do that, I've noticed, because I've asked some people, put them on the spot, if you don't take the time to calculate your stride length, it way overestimates how many steps you've taken. Because I have mine calculated, and let's say I took 5,000 steps in a day. When I've compared to people who have not calculated their stride, they might get a readout this is like 12,000 steps per day. So that's another thing to think about when you're comparing brands is, does it give you a test when you first set up your device to figure out your stride? Because if you think about it, you can't really see how far I'm stepping, but if you think about it, if you have an average stride length of, let's say, I don't know, I'm just making it up, 24 inches. But if the device is calculating based on, I don't know, 30 inches, that adds up over the day, right? Like if you walked total say like 5 miles, but it's calculating, you know, it's a, you get what I'm saying. So it's really important to just take your time when you first get a device or later to cover all of the categories that it gives you to put in information, because it'll give you a better readout. The more you help it, the more it can help you. So I hope that helps. Oh, I was going to talk about heart rate. This is a big reason why I wear a heart rate. I use Polar because it first started out as a heart rate monitor. And for me, that's, like I said, I like using the Fitbit for the flight stairs just because I think it's fun. But the heart rate thing is really important for me because, and this is something where if you take the time and calculate things like heart rate on whatever brand you have, it'll likely show you that you have different heart rate zones. And I'm not going to get super into it right now, but you can look it up on your own. There's certain, like, once your heart starts beating certain beats per minute, there's a certain like frame of beats per minute where you're probably burning more fat than if your heart rate went higher or lower. And for me, I know that I have, even all the years I've been working out, I have a tendency to work much harder than I need to for when I'm doing like cardio type of activities. And I think it comes from my dance background where it's all like super like high intensity, explosive movements. So that's kind of my comfort zone. But it's one thing when you're performing and you can't help that your heart rate goes that high. And it's another thing when you're just wanting to do cardio and burn body fat. It's normal for me to go into that way insanely high intense zone. And that's not where you want to be for burning fat. So I like to use it to keep myself in check because I always had to pull it back, slow it down, bring it down a notch or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 so that I stay in the fat burning zone and don't overdo it. And a lot of other people do that too. So that's something to consider too when you're trying to figure out which brand to get. Look at the features that are important to you. If it's important to you to have heart rate accuracy, that's why I choose Polar, because they, like I said, they started out as a heart rate monitor company and they've put lots of money into that. And I don't know, I could be wrong, I don't know that, let's say, Fitbit has put the money into the research, into those formulations for heart rates. So that's why I rely on my Polar. And so hopefully those are some helpful things for you to think about. If you joined in at the end or partway through, hopefully you'll watch the rest and share it with anybody if they're looking for what to think about when considering which heart rate monitor to get. So I hope that you will follow me if you're not already. And those of you who are, thank you so much. Have a great day. Bye.